Hey there, it's Tom Corson-Knowles, #1 best-selling author of Schedule Your Success and founder of TCK Publishing. In this video, I'm going to show you how to speed read, and I'm going to show you how to triple your reading speed, improve your comprehension, and improve your memory. So you can not only read a whole lot faster, but you'll actually remember more of what you read and understand it even better. So in the past 10 years, I've read over 2,000 books. Now, I've read slow, and I've read fast. And trust me, reading fast is a whole lot better if you do it right. So there's a way that you can speed read where you just read really fast and you don't remember anything and don't have any idea what you're reading, which obviously is probably not what you're looking for. Then there's the method of speed reading where you can read really, really fast, but you actually remember exactly what you read and you comprehend what you read really, really easily. So I want to talk about a couple speed reading myths first, and then I'm going to walk you through the speed reading exercises you can use to triple your reading speed and improve your comprehension and memory. Right, so the first speed reading myth out there is that it's fake, right? It's like it's just a scam. It's like people say you can read really fast, but the truth is it's not actually humanly possible. Speed reading is not fake, right? The problem is that we're taught in school a method of reading that is very, 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 very slow. And so everyone is ingrained in our culture and our society with this slow reading method. And so since everyone else reads really slow, we just assume that's the way reading is normally done, but it's not the optimal way to read for memory, for retention, and for speed. Now, another myth is that speed reading is just about skimming, right? So you open up a book and you just skim through, you read the headlines, you read maybe, some people have said, like read the first sentence in every paragraph. That's skimming. That's not speed reading, right? And there's nothing wrong with skimming. Sometimes that's the best thing to do. If you've got a book, you're not really sure if it's good information or not, and you want to just start skimming through it, there's nothing wrong with that. But that is not speed reading, and that's not what we're going to talk about in this video. Now, another myth about speed reading is that you can't remember what you read. So you can read really fast and go through books really fast, but you can't actually remember it. That's not true at all. In fact, the faster you read, the better your memory and comprehension will be in most cases, because if you've ever noticed, your mind moves a lot faster than you can probably read right now, right? So for slow readers and average readers, your mind can move so much faster and process so much more information than what you can read. And actually, the biggest limiting factor in reading is actually your eyes. So the movement of your eyes is the biggest limiting factor in reading speed, which is why we'll talk about how to actually do some exercises to improve your eye movements and so you can read faster. But the faster you read, generally speaking, if you're focused, if you're paying attention, if you're concentrating, you can actually remember more because your mind is more focused, and so your brain is more focused on the task at hand. And so all that information going in actually stays in your medium-term and long-term memory a whole lot better. Now, another big myth about speed reading is that it's not enjoyable. Like, it's not fun. People will say, I just want to lay back on the beach and enjoy this romance novel or enjoy this sci-fi book or enjoy some nice nonfiction. I don't want to have to worry about reading quickly. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You can enjoy your reading all you want, have a ton of fun, but you can actually enjoy your reading more, I found in a lot of cases, if you actually learn some of these exercises and tips for reading more efficiently and effectively. So you don't have to rush when you speed read. Speed reading is not about rushing or hurrying or trying really hard to do it really fast. It's actually just about using some different strategies and different methods for reading that are more efficient and more effective. So you can actually have a ton of fun while you're speed reading. So let's talk about why we read slow. Well, first of all, we were taught wrong in school, right? So when you're taught to read, you're taught, read one word at a time and focus on that one word. And so what happens is your eyes move to the first word and the second word and the third word and the fourth word and then the fifth word. And as you can tell, it's really, really slow to read that way. And so that's how most of us are taught to read. And because we were taught this very slow method of reading, that's just what we do. It becomes a habit, right? So we create these eye muscle habits of reading every single word one at a time. And those bad eye muscle habits become ingrained, right? So it's just your natural habit. So if you open up a book and start reading right now, you're probably going to use those old muscle habits that you've used ever since you were, 3 or 4 or 5 years old, or however old you were when you learned to read. And so because we have these old habits, the way you actually improve your reading speed and improve your reading comprehension is by retraining your eye muscles. That's a huge part of it, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. Now, the other reason why we read slow is because of belief. Right, so have you ever heard the story of Roger Bannister in the 4-Minute Mile? There was this guy named Roger Bannister who said, hey, I'm going to run a 4-minute mile. And no one in the world had ever run a 4-minute mile before him. But he said, I'm going to do it. I believe I can do it. And eventually he broke the 4-minute mile record. He broke that barrier. And afterwards, thousands of people have broken that same record. No one in the history of the human race had ever run a 4-minute mile. This guy does it, changes the belief system of runners, and then thousands of runners. And now even high school runners have broken the 4-minute mile. So the same metaphor, the same lesson here applies to reading. If everyone you know says, hey, it took me 10 hours to read that book, you think it's normal to read a book in 10 hours. But for speed readers, it's normal to read a book in an hour, 2 hours at most, oftentimes less than an hour, depending on the size of the book. So if everyone around you believes it takes 10 hours to read a book, it's really hard to trust someone who says, hey, I can read a book in an hour or 2 hours or less, right? So when you get around people who are doing speed reading, and when you start to believe that it's possible, it becomes a whole lot easier to actually learn these strategies and apply these strategies and to say, yes, maybe right now it takes me 10 hours to read a book, but my goal is to get that down to 3 hours or 2 hours or 1 hour or less, right? And it is possible if you put in the time and effort and practice, and you can do it pretty quickly, but you have to believe. So I hope this video will not only give you the tools to become a better speed reader, but give you the belief you need to dramatically improve your reading speed. Because if you don't believe, you might as well just stop watching now, right? If you're not willing to put in the time and effort and you don't actually think you can do it, then you're not going to be successful. Okay, now there's 4 keys to the process of learning speed reading. Now, speed reading isn't something you just learn. You're not just going to watch this video and then you're a speed reader for the rest of your life. You actually have to practice, right? And there's 4 steps to practicing speed reading to make it a habit. And once it's a habit, you have it for life, right? So if it takes you 30 days to learn how to speed read, but you use that for the rest of your life, imagine how many thousands of hours of time that will save you when you're reading books and blog posts and Facebook and whatever else you're reading. You can read so much faster, but you have to turn it into a habit. And so step 1 is you have to learn the proper technique. In this video, I'm going to show you the 2 most powerful speed reading exercises in the world. If you apply them and you practice them diligently, and you practice them in the right way, and you learn that proper technique, you will develop that habit. So you've got to learn the technique first, then you've got to practice the technique in the right way. Then what you want to do is you want to practice at 3x speed. So first you're going to learn the technique, and then you're going to practice the technique and make sure you practice it the right way. Once you master the technique and understand exactly how it works, then you're going to triple your speed. So when you triple your speed, by the way, you're going to have almost no idea what you're reading, right? And because we're practicing now. So I'm not talking about this is what you're going to do for the rest of your life. This is just during the practice stage so you can learn. And what practicing at 3 times speed does is it forces your brain to pay attention and try to catch up, right? So if you've ever practiced a sport, like if you ever practiced returning serves in ping pong or racquetball or tennis, then when you start to play, if you're like a beginner, amateur, or intermediate player, and you play against a pro or semi-pro or really good player, sometimes it feels like they're hitting the ball at you so fast that you can't even see it go by, right? It's so fast you can't even see it, you can't even react in time. But what happens is if you keep playing with players who hit the ball that fast, eventually your brain and your mind starts to catch up, and you start to notice little things like the way they move their shoulder and so forth, and all this is done subconsciously. And all of a sudden, a month later, you're playing against that same pro player and you can return it every time. Your mind just automatically processes that information so much faster because you've trained it to process that information so much faster. So you have to do the same thing with speed reading. You have to train your brain to process information faster. And the only way to do that is to start to read faster. And just like when you're returning a serve from a pro tennis player, you are not going to be able to figure it out the first time, right? So the first time you practice these speed reading techniques at 3 times speed, you are going to have no idea what you're reading. It's going to feel like you're an idiot. It's going to feel like you have no idea what you're doing, but that's exactly what you want to do. Just like returning the serves from a pro player, you have to have them hit the ball at you again and again and again as fast as they can so your mind catches up and starts to learn how that process works and starts to process that information faster. So you're going to practice at 3 times speed once you learn the proper technique. And then what you're going to do is you're going to turn that proper technique and that triple speed into a habit, right? So you're going to practice every single day for 30 days. If you practice every single day for 30 days and you practice the proper technique at triple speed, eventually, usually in about 2 weeks, your mind will start to catch up. And all of a sudden, you'll start to still be reading at triple speed, but start to read everything, start to remember everything, start to comprehend everything. And it's amazing how fast that process can happen if you practice every single day. So the first reading technique we're going to talk about has to do with eye fixations. So you have to understand how you actually read. So your eye takes a snapshot every time it stops moving. So if you actually study, and they've done studies on human eyes and how they work, your eyes move around quite a bit. They start to dart around the room. They move around quite a bit. And when you're reading, they move from word to word to word. And so what happens is that when your eyes are moving, you can't actually see, right? What happens is when your eye stops, it's called an eye fixation. And that's when it takes that snapshot image and you can actually see the words on the page. So what most people do is we fixate on every single word 1, word 2, word 3, word 4, so forth. But when you actually take a snapshot image with that eye fixation, it's actually much bigger than most words. So most folks without any training whatsoever, you'll be able to read 3 to 5 words for every snapshot, for every eye fixation. So with every eye fixation, you can read 3 to 5 words. But if you waste those eye fixations reading the first word and the second one and the third one in order, you're going to take 5 times as long to read the same amount of information you could have read with just one simple eye fixation. So less eye fixations, less eye movement actually equals far more reading speed. So this first exercise you can do in 2 minutes, and this is going to train you to start improving your eye fixation habit. So how it's going to work is you're going to start on the second word of each line in your book. So you're going to pick a book, and when you're practicing speed reading, you want to pick a book that is relatively easy to read. So not a science textbook or medical textbook with big complicated words. You want something that's relatively easy to read. So usually like a light nonfiction or a light novel, some kind of fiction reading, or a simple, easy to understand nonfiction book. It doesn't matter what you read, but as long as it's not really high, complex, hard to read language. So then you're going to start reading on the second word of each line. So when you start this exercise, your eye is going to focus only on the second word of the line and then move to the right. So you're not going to look at the first word in that line because, again, that eye fixation, you're going to be able to see the first word, but you're not going to have to focus on it. You're not going to take an image of it. You're just going to take an image of the second word. And then at the end of that line on that page, you're going to stop on the second to last word of each line. So again, you're looking at the second word, the front of each line, and the second word and the last of each line. And you're just going from the second word at the front to the second word at the end, and you're not wasting any eye fixation or any eye movement on the words on the totally left side of the page or the totally right side of the page, okay? So that's how you're going to start this exercise, and you're going to do it for 2 minutes. So you're going to start to read as fast as you can, starting at the second word and ending at the second to last word. Now, once you've gone through this exercise and you mastered it, then you're going to go to that 3x speed. You're going to do it 3 times as fast. And again, you're not going to have any idea what you're reading because you're going so fast, but you're just practicing. And then after you've done that, and you've mastered those eye fixations, you should start to notice that even though you can't read everything, you're starting to read the first word and the last word. Even though you're not looking at those words, your eyes are taking an image of them and you're actually able to read them and comprehend them. Once you get to the point where you can read and comprehend the first word and the last word at triple speed, then you're going to start the same exercise again, starting on the third word of each line and ending on the third to last word of each line. And again, when you're going to keep doing that and practice that at triple speed until you can read all the words on the left and all the words on the right, even though you're not looking at them, your mind is taking a snapshot of them. And once you get to that stage, you're going to be reading 3 times as fast. But if you want to keep going and become like a professional high-level speed reader, you can go to the 4th word and the 5th word and so on. Usually around 4 to 5 words is when most folks tap out, and that's about the limit of what the human eye can do. But if you master this in just the second word of each line, you'll double your reading speed. If you master the third word of each line, you can easily triple your reading speed with just this one exercise. So you're going to practice this exercise for at least 2 minutes every single day. Now, it's mandatory you do these exercises every single day, because if you don't, you're not going to build that habit. And if you don't build that habit, you might as well just quit, right? So what a lot of folks do is they kind of start to dabble with speed reading, and they say, oh, I'll try this exercise, and I'll do it for like 3 days, and then they quit. And they don't really get much benefit out of it. But if you do it every single day for 30 days, it will make a huge impact. Now, the other big reason people read slow is because of rereading. So there's 2 types of rereading. There's backslipping, which is unconscious, and there's regression, which is conscious. So backslipping is when like you lose your place on the page. So, you're reading and you're going along and everything's fine. You're like, oh wait, where was I on the page? You get distracted by something else. So maybe you just weren't really paying a lot of attention, or a thought came to your mind, you start focusing on your thought, or there's a noise that distracted you. Backslipping happens a lot. And that unconscious rereading can dramatically slow you down. Now, the other kind is regression. So that's conscious rereading. So that's when you read something and you're like, hey, I didn't really understand that last sentence. I've got to go back now and reread that last sentence so I can understand it. And if you're anything like me, when I used to read, before I learned these speed reading techniques, is I used to like read the same sentence sometimes like 3, 4, 5, 6 times. I was like, I'm still not really getting it because I was so unfocused, right? My mind had become so habituated to being distracted, to not being focused on what I was reading, and so I didn't understand what I was reading. And so it's a very common problem, and you can fix both of these with a very simple reading technique. So this exercise, again, you can do it in 2 minutes, and what you can do is you can use your pen as a pointer on the page. So instead of just using your eyes to read and just holding the book with 2 hands, you can have a pen in one hand and a book in one hand, and have the cap on the pen. You don't need to actually mark anything, but you're just going to use the pen as a tracker, as a pointer. And your eyes will always follow the pen during this exercise. So you're going to use the pen to guide your eyes, and your eyes have to follow the pen. That's the rule. And you can never backtrack. So your eyes can only follow the pen. Your pen is constantly moving from left to right and down the page. So you're constantly moving forward and making progress. Now, again, when you start to practice this exercise, you might find you don't understand a sentence, but you have to go through and keep reading because you're training the muscles and you're training your brain. So when you're practicing, you're not trying to read when you're practicing, you're not trying to understand everything when you're practicing, you're just trying to train your muscles, and your mind will catch up and start to process this information so much faster once you train it and give it time. So you're going to use the pen as the pointer, you're going to read as fast as you can with that pen, and your eyes are going to follow the pen along the page and never backtrack. Now you can actually combine these 2 exercises. Once you master exercise number 1 and exercise number 2, you're going to combine them together. So you might start on the second or third word of the page using your pen as a pointer, and then stop on the second to last or third to last word on that page, again using your pen as a pointer. But don't do that until you've mastered both these exercises. So you actually want to go through both exercises separately, probably for at least that first week, until you really start to get it ingrained. Because again, proper practice and proper technique is the most important thing. So don't just try to jump in and do it all at once. It's going to be too much for your brain to process, and it's going to be a lot harder. So start with the exercises separately until you master them, and then combine them, and you can do that one reading exercise every single day. Now, when you first start doing this pen exercise and you go to 3 times speed, you're probably not going to be able to read anything, or not really going to comprehend much of what you're reading. And it's going to feel like you're rushing. But again, you're training your brain, and you're actually rewiring the neurons in your brain. So the way this works, when you learn anything new, it actually rewires the neurons in your brain. Not only are you rewiring the neurons that process reading information and take visual images, you're also rewiring the parts of your brain that control the movement of your eyes, right? So have you ever heard about muscle memory? If you've got someone who's got an amazing free throw shot in basketball, they've got some great muscle memory there. So if they wanted to have a really bad shot in basketball, they would actually have to retrain their muscles, retrain that muscle memory, and retrain the neurons in their brain. Right? So that's what you're doing with your eyes and with your brain. You're retraining yourself, the muscles and the neurons, to fire differently, to function differently. And again, that takes time and it takes practice. And while you're going through that process, you're going to become, you're not going to be able to comprehend and read as well, right? So, for example, I switched my keyboard from the typical QWERTY keyboard layout to a different kind of keyboard layout called Colmac, which is much more efficient. And when I made that switch, I went from typing like 120 words per minute to typing like 30 words per minute, because the keys are all in different places, and I had to rewire my brain. I kept hitting the wrong keys over and over again because I had all these old muscle habits. But after about a month or so, my brain started to rewire and started just typing on that new keyboard layout automatically, and my reading speed went up and actually my typing speed went up and actually above what it had been before. So there is that kind of learning process you're going to go through where you're actually going to feel like you're a worse reader as you go through these exercises, because you're challenging yourself, you're retraining your brain, you're retraining your neurons, and that takes work and takes practice. And in that meantime, you're going to feel, again, like an idiot. It's just how it works when you go through this process. You're going to feel really dumb until you start to come out on the other side and those neurons start to fire in the right way. And then you're going to feel like a freaking genius because you've tripled your reading speed and you can remember more than you've ever remembered before when you were reading. So there is no shortcut to this. You have to go through the exercises, you have to go through the training, you have to work on it, and you have to go through that process where you get worse before you get better. That's the only way you can triple your reading speed, is you get worse first and then you get better, right? Another great metaphor is Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods totally redid his swing a couple of years ago. And when he did that, he started becoming a much worse golfer. When he started to retrain his swing, his score started going up which is bad in golf. You don't want your score to go up. You want your score to go down. So he went through that process of getting worse because he knew on the other end he was going to get better. And when he did, and he found his new swing, his score went down. He became the best golfer in the world, right? Right, so if you want to get dramatically better at speed reading, just like Tiger Woods, you've got to get worse a little bit at first in that first month of practice to get a whole lot better by using a different technique and different training. Now, concentration is a huge key to reading faster and to actually remembering what you read, right? And so by reading faster, you force your brain to speed up and you force your brain to concentrate more. Again, your brain can process information so much faster than your eyes can actually move across the page and read. And so the faster you actually learn to read, the more you're going to concentrate and the more you're going to remember. So the big myth is that speed readers don't have good comprehension, they don't remember what they read, but actually they tend to have better comprehension and remember better because you're more focused and more concentrated on the task at hand. So if you're a distracted reader, you easily get thoughts in your head or emotions come up or you hear a noise and it totally distracts you. By going through this training, this process, you're going to have to learn how to concentrate more when you read. When you read, you should be 100% focused on reading. If you're thinking about something else or trying to solve a problem in your head or trying to listen to a conversation, you're not going to be an effective reader and you're not going to comprehend what you read, no matter whether you're reading slow or fast. Right? So without 100% concentration and focus, you're not going to have good reading comprehension because what happens is you have too much information and distracting information from different parts of your brain going through your mind. And so your hippocampus actually can't program that information in to your medium and long-term memory. So if you want to remember what you read and comprehend what you read, you have to concentrate and be 100% focused. So when you're doing these exercises, you want to be concentrated and 100% focused. And when you're reading, you want to be concentrated and 100% focused. Okay, so let's talk about action steps. You need to start practicing these exercises now for 30 days to really build the habit. If you're not going to commit to 30 days, don't bother because you're not going to see successful results long term. Okay, so don't waste your time trying to practice for 1 day or 1 week. You've got to do this for 30 days. Try to do 30 days in a row. If you skip a day, it's not a big deal. Just pick up the next day, right? Don't shame yourself over this or think, oh, I messed up, I missed a day, it's not going to work. Just keep practicing until you get it. The more you practice, the more consistently you practice, the faster you're going to get it. But just keep practicing until you get it. And if you skip a day, just pick up the next day and keep going for it. Now, all you need is 5 minutes of total practice each day. But remember, you have to stay focused. You have to be 100% concentrated. If you're doing a 2-minute speed reading exercise and you're trying to listen to a conversation next door, you're not really focused, you're thinking about the exam you're studying for, or whatever it is, you need to stop and tell yourself, look, I have to focus on this. I have to concentrate 100% on the task at hand. If you don't practice and stay focused when you're practicing, it's going to take you so much longer to learn, and you're actually going to ingrain bad habits. Right? So remember to talk about learning proper reading technique. And so it's important to go through the exercises like we talked about before, using the pen, starting on the second word and so forth. Those exercises are important. But it's not just the exercise that's important, it's how you practice makes a huge difference. So if you practice being distracted, if you practice not being focused, guess what? You're going to train yourself this new habit of reading in a very unfocused way and not remembering what you read. So instead of doing that and self-sabotaging, what you want to do is stay 100% focused. If you find yourself practicing and you're not focused, either stop practicing or find a way to get focused, right? So take a break, take a walk around, get up, or refocus yourself. When you practice, you must be focused, so you train yourself on proper technique and you train yourself to concentrate. If you train yourself to be distracted, guess what? You're going to be distracted for a very long time. If you train yourself to stay focused, you'll become easier and easier every single day to stay more focused and to concentrate more as you read. I hope you found this video training and tutorial on speed reading really, really helpful. Again, my name is Corson-Knowles. I'm the founder of TCK Publishing. If you like this video, please click the like button below. Post your comments with any questions you have about speed reading or how to read faster or memory comprehension, whatever it is you want to talk about. Books, I love talking about books all day long. And if you found this video helpful, please share it with other folks you know who want to read faster. I strongly believe if that we were taught how to speed read like this, the right way of reading faster and remembering more at a very young age, in school, in grade school, as kids, we would be a much happier, much more productive society. One of the reasons most folks hate to read and don't enjoy reading is because they read so slow. They've learned these habits of being unfocused and distracted, and so it's not enjoyable to read really slow, right? Think about everything in your life. If you ever tried a sport or tried to do an activity or a hobby that you really suck at, guess what? You don't really enjoy it. And so you stop doing it and you start doing things you really enjoy doing that you're good at. And one of the reasons most people aren't very good at reading and don't enjoy it is because we're taught the wrong techniques. So please share this message with everyone you know. Train your kids, train your friends, train your family, train your colleagues, train everyone you know how to speed read. And everyone will learn so much faster, to concentrate better, to stay more focused, and to enjoy the amazing gift of reading, because reading is a huge part of our lives. We live in the knowledge economy now, right? And so if you don't know how to read and don't know how to read fast, know how to remember what you read, you are at a huge disadvantage in our economy, and you're not able to contribute to our society the way you would be able to if you could read really quickly and remember what you read, because that knowledge you can pass on to, again, to your kids, family, friends, colleagues, peers, associates. You can learn more by reading more and pass on that knowledge and make life better for yourself and for everyone in your life. So please share this message with everyone you know. Practice speed reading, become a speed reading master yourself, and then share this far and wide. Wishing you an incredible day. Take care.